Hello. Can you all hear me? Give me a yes in the side if you can hear me. I have a little hidden screen that you can't see where I have, I'm getting a bit of reverb coming back here. I have a bit of a yes, lots of yeses. Hello everyone. This is so exciting. I'm just so stoked to get going with this. We've put so much effort over the last few months into getting this ready, and it all comes down to this moment and these coming weeks, and it's going to be more excited to get going. Firstly, I want to say thank you all for turning up to this first session. It's just so exciting to see so many of you here. Really appreciate all of the comments as well. Just please keep those coming throughout the whole stream. The more you write there, the more I know that you're enjoying yourself. Please ask questions. I'm going to talk so much about questions in this session, but please ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask things. You don't need to feel like you need to be answering each other's questions. I will just try and keep an eye on things and go back. So if I don't answer your question straight away, I will try and come back and cover everything. And if I do miss anything, you can definitely ask me after the stream as well on Discord or Discourse on the forum, and I'll help you out there. Good, let's get going. Okay, so this session, what are we doing today? We're going to start off by talking about the bootcamp. That's the first thing. I want to make sure everyone knows what you've signed up for, what you're doing, how to use the bootcamp. I want to make sure everyone's actually got access to the things they should have access to. We're going to then talk a bit about the learning that I want you to have on this bootcamp, specifically the mindset I want you to have. So much of programming is about the right mindset. It's about developing what I like to call the coder's mind. And we're going to start with that today, thinking about what those properties are and how you can be honing those things throughout the course. And then we're going to dig into your first bit of code. At the end of this session, I'm going to flip a switch on the Bootcamp website for you, and you'll have access to some exercises, and you can dive in, you can try things out. And then hopefully before Monday, I think there's only 4 or 5 exercises for you to do for the rest of today or tomorrow. They won't take you too long, I don't think. And then there'll be a whole load more stuff coming on Monday for you. But we're going to be taking this just really easy. I think it'll probably last for somewhere between 1 and 2 hours, depending on how many questions there are, how quickly I speak. There's no time limit. I haven't had dinner, but I can go for a while. So we'll just keep it chill and have some fun. And I do have my rubber duck with me. I see a couple of you seeing that. No, the rubber duck, this particular one, I was in Japan for the last 3 months of last year, and I picked this up in Japan as my new special rubber duck for the bootcamp. But you should have all got an onboarding email telling you about the rubber duck and asking you to get one. If you haven't got a rubber duck yet, please do get a rubber duck. I think I will actually put a dedicated rubber duck channel together on Discord where everyone can post photos of their rubber ducks. Quite a few people have already posted, sent me photos, which has been really fun. But I wasn't joking. You do need a rubber duck for this course, but we'll come back to him in a minute. And we can choose a name as well. I also have my bootcamp, I don't know if you can see this, bootcamp t-shirt on. We have Exercism swag. There's only one of these at the moment, but if other people did want to get Exercism bootcamp t-shirts or other swag, let me know, and we might put some of those exclusively in the store for you all as well. Just checking the comments. If you see me looking over here, that's just me keeping an eye on the comments. There's about a 10-15 second delay on this video, by the way. I've chosen to use YouTube just because it's super stable. There's 1 million people streaming on YouTube right now. You don't have to do anything or download anything. You just get to watch this, and then we automatically get the video back just straight away afterwards, so that everyone can watch it back. People can join a bit late. It doesn't matter, and that's a lot easier than trying to get you all using Zoom or some other technology like that. So that was the reason for using YouTube. I hope it works well. I've done some YouTube streams in the past. They've all gone pretty smoothly. I should say there are technical things that could go wrong. My Wi-Fi, or I'm wired internet, but my internet could go, the camera could run out of battery. If any of these things happen, I'll just post something on Discord, we'll sort it out, we'll come back. So, but hopefully everything will be smoothly. The sun's also setting outside. I've got some lights in here. Hopefully it's bright enough for you to see. But if you've got any feedback on any of these sorts of things, just let me know and we'll just try and improve it for the next session. Okay, that's my preamble sorted. So thank you for joining the bootcamp. That's the first thing I want to say. Thank you for putting your learning into my hands and into the hands of the mentors and other people involved in this. It's a real privilege to be able to share my passion for programming with you. I've been programming for 33 years now. I realise I've probably written more lines of code than I have written English, which is pretty terrifying. And programming has always been just a massive part of my life, something I'm super passionate about, and I've always loved teaching people. So I hope that's going to pay off for you. But I just want you to know I think it's a real privilege that a privilege from me that you've chosen to join the bootcamp. I'm really grateful for that trust, and I want you to know I'll endeavour to do my best to give you a really great experience. In terms of people that are signed up, about a third of you have never coded before. This is your total first experience. And we're going to be starting at absolute zero. So if you're in that bucket, that's fine. You are going to be learning the very basics of coding. The session today, we're really going to start from scratch. About a third of you have done some coding, tried to use some of the websites, maybe not got very far, given up, come back. Some of you tried 10 years ago and you keep on trying each year, but you've not got there. The first few sessions might feel a bit slow for you, just because it's stuff that you'll already have gone over. But I really want you to, even though you might have heard these things before, I really want you to take the time to listen and to think about the way that I'm explaining things. Because I think a lot of the value that I'm going to offer is not in explaining how to do something, but it's explaining how to think about something. I'm a big believer that programming is all about thinking correctly, not doing correctly. And so even if you feel like you know a lot of the basics that we'll be covering, still take the time to try and think it through from the angle that I'm explaining things from. And then a third of you are much more experienced developers. Some of you have computer science degrees. There's a few that are actually even professional developers. The general reason from what you've told me that you want to come on here is to either brush up on fundamentals or specifically on the web dev side. If you're brushing up on fundamentals, again, take what I'm saying, think of it as a new way of explaining concepts that you might not have heard before. If you feel comfortable with all that, but you're really just looking forward to the web dev side, then the first couple of months might not have much for you. Really, part 2 is where we're going to be digging into the web development. But still see this through, do the exercises. If you're good at coding already, if you know how to code, the exercises should be really quick. I think most of the exercises I'm going to be able to solve in 5 minutes myself. But for a total beginner, it might take an hour or 2. So if you're good at coding, you should still be able just to sort of blitz through all the exercises without too much hassle. And then we'll get onto the web dev stuff and everything around there later on. I'm just going to pause. I'm just going to scroll back through the comments because there's lots, which is brilliant. Let me just take a little look and make sure. Somebody's got a fairy instead of a duck. That's good. People like shirts. Cool. I'll put a question on the forum about swag, and you can put some answers in there. That'll be really good. I'm glad people are happy with YouTube. Thank you for that. I am streaming from Madeira. So I am a nomad. I am a digital nomad, but I don't have a home at all. I live on the road. I sold my flat last year, and I've been totally nomadic since. The last 3 months of the year, I was in Japan last year, and for the first 3 months, part 1, I'm going to be in Madeira, which is a little Portuguese island just off the side of Africa, and I absolutely love it here. Has a really nice slow pace of life. It's sunny and 22, 23 degrees, but it's a place that I love coming back to. Wave to anyone that's Portuguese or speaks Portuguese, and especially if anyone's got Madeiran roots. If you've not heard of Madeira, the thing you'll know it of is the place that Cristiano Ronaldo grew up. And the whole island is basically just like a massive monument to Ronaldo at this point. Like the airport is called the Cristiano Ronaldo Airport. There's a Cristiano Ronaldo museum. So although you might not have heard of the island, you'll know it from that. Question, if you don't use Discord, will communications also be shared by another method? Yeah, so I'll talk about this in a bit. The forum is compulsory, but Discord is not. So I'll be sharing updates via the forum, just because emails can get blocked by lots of people's emails have gone to spam at some point and all sorts. It's just a hassle. But the forum we've got control over. So we'll use the forum for critical announcements, and there'll just be like one channel that you can watch if you want to see those announcements, and there'll just be messages from me on there. So you can just check that once a day or once every few days. Just reading through. No, we're not going to be covering Node.js. I want this to be about fundamental programming. I programmed in JavaScript for probably 20 years before touching something like Node. We don't need frameworks like React. We can build anything using just JavaScript, and that's what we're going to do. And once you've got really good JavaScript knowledge down, Node.js is easy, React's pretty straightforward. Those things become easy once you know how to use the language. So we're going to be focusing on the language. Lots more comments. This is great, thank you. Let me just check. Chat, all through this is on YouTube. I don't have Discord open. Do I think that writing notes is necessary? 100% not. Like, please don't write notes. If you have a pen in your hand, put it down. I hate notes. It's a really weird thing to say, but I think if you're taught by somebody who expects you to write lots of notes, that's just a sign that they are not teaching you in a way that means things are sinking in. You are going to learn on this course, I'm going to talk more about this, but you're going to learn on this course by solving exercises, by writing code. Everything you learn is going to be by writing code. Everything of importance that I'm saying is going to appear on the Bootcamp website for you, either alongside the exercise you're doing as like little reminders, or whole pages that just recap everything I say that we'll link to. I don't think there's any need for you to write notes because I don't want you to be memorizing anything on this course. If you have to memorize things, I have not done my job right. This course is about you practicing so much that things just become natural. Everything should just feel familiar because you're practicing. It's like when you're learning a language, you watch a kid learning a language, they learn to communicate by listening and by trying and by practicing, and eventually it sinks in. They don't learn by writing notes because they can't write and they can't communicate. They learn by just practicing until they get it. And kids can talk for a long time before they learn all the formal ways of doing things. And that's how we're going to approach this. You're going to learn to code by coding. Let me roll through. Hello from the UK. I am British. You definitely can all tell by the accent. Okay, I'll talk about the duck thing in a minute. You do not need to download any software. Okay, I think I'm caught up. If I missed anything, you can tell me. No, you're not late by 30 minutes. We started on time, but I let the stream run a little bit before. Okay, let's crack on. So, who am I? That's my next thing. So I've already mentioned a bit about this. I won't keep banging on about myself, but I've been coding since I was a kid. For those of you that missed this email, I started when I was 8. I learned by making games. I learned by doing things. I didn't have the internet for probably like the first 7 years that I learned to code. I just literally learned by trying things. And that's sort of the attitude I think a lot of the best developers had and have. The fact that you have all of these tutorials on YouTube now, I think actually makes things harder, not easier, because you can spend your life watching a tutorial, not actually coding. I have a formal programming education as well. I have a degree in computer science and in artificial intelligence. My degree in AI is from 2005, when nobody was talking about AI, way before it was cool. But I've been a professional developer now for 20 years. I've done a whole load of stuff, lots of web stuff. the whole of Exercism. I've had my fingertips in all of the back end for Exercism pretty much. I've coded lots of the front end as well. All of the content and lots of the tracks has been done by volunteers, and we've had some other people as well work on bits and dabs, but probably 60-70% of Exercism's whole code base has been written by me. So I think I've got good credentials when it comes to web development. I've built a whole load of other platforms. Exercism is my third educational platform. I spent a lot of time in medical education, teaching medical students. I ran a medical education platform that had about 20% of medical students in the world using it to help them learn medicine. I have patents in AI for heart surgery. So a whole range of different things that I've built and worked on. So I feel confident in saying I know how to code. I feel confident in saying you can trust that I know what I'm doing. And I've also spent 20 years in education, and I'm really passionate about education and opportunity as well. So those are my credentials. I'm not going to talk about myself anymore in the whole course, but just to hopefully give you some confidence that I know what I'm talking about. Also, we have Aaron. There are only two people that work for Exercism. There's me and there's Aaron. Aaron works on the front end. The bootcamp interface and everything that you're going to use, Aaron's made. We've built a whole website just for you. Whole like special editor, interface, all sorts of stuff, all for you. And probably 90% of the front end of that has been Aaron. So I don't know if Aaron's on the call. He was going to try and make it, but it's a Saturday, so he's definitely off work. Yeah, if you enjoy the UI, then like definitely give a shout out to Aaron on Discord and connect with him or on the forum. And if we have any issues, then tell me, tell Aaron, and we'll get on fixing those. But I'll talk about that more in a bit. And then the most important people on this course, not me, not Aaron, but all of the mentors. We've got loads of mentors who are volunteers who are here to help you. Now, the reason that we can keep the bootcamp as cheap as we have is because we have volunteers. So Exercism's whole platform has basically been built through volunteers. All of the 75 different language tracks in Exercism have been built by volunteers. All of the mentorings of tens of thousands of students has all happened by volunteers. And many of those most senior volunteers have volunteered to come and help out on this bootcamp. So we've got people who have mentored thousands, I think in a couple of cases, tens of thousands of students in Exercism, and they're here to help you. A lot of them are very experienced developers. They've worked for some big names, Google, NASA, all sorts of places. Some of them are newer developers. They might have only been coding for a couple of years, but want to share their experience. And it's really great to have that wide variety of skill sets. They're here on the course fundamentally to help you get unstuck. They're not there to teach you. That's my job in these sessions. But if there are things that you don't understand that I don't make clear, they might clarify those for you. But really, when you get stuck on exercises or you don't know how to progress, they're there so that they can answer your questions, they can help you, that they can give their years of wisdom to helping that. I'm just going to catch up with these messages, but then I want to talk a little bit more about the mentors. Let me scan up. Okay, so a couple more questions on notes. Will we touch on data structures or algorithms? Yeah, we're going to be looking at data structures. I don't know how much we'll look at algorithms. I don't think algorithms matter. And yeah, we'll touch on some things. We might do another course in the future, a bit more on algorithms, but we'll definitely look at data structures. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. What will you be able to do after the course? Great question. You'll be able to code, and hopefully you'll feel comfortable coding. If you're doing part 1 and part 2, you'll also be comfortable making a web page, making it look pretty, making it do things. You'll be comfortable interacting with other websites and APIs as well. We're going to touch on that. You'll be able, my aim with this course is to give you a really solid foundation so that doing anything else is easy for you. That's the way I want you to think about everything we're doing and talking about. It's about learning the why. not the how or the what. It's about learning the why. Why am I doing this? Why does this work how it works? Like, build an understanding. Make this stuff feel like, I like to talk about coding feeling tactile. I want you to be able to like almost feel your way through things. And that's going to be the aim of this course. And if you have that, then you can just read a tutorial on how to do something. Like, it's really easy to learn something from a YouTube tutorial if you've got all of the fundamentals and the understanding in place. It's really hard when every third word the person on the YouTube tutorial is saying is making you have to like think really hard, because you just get lost. So my aim is to just make you not have to think very much when you get to the end of this. But there'll be lots of practical web dev skills as well. You can access the recordings, yes. You can. You should not do the JavaScript track yet, but you will be able to do it later. We'll have that. These are great questions. Thank you. Will it be productive to rewrite the exercises in other languages once we're done with the task? No, it won't. When we're ready to use other languages, we'll use Exercism for that. I don't recommend Odin Project or Code Wars at the moment. If you want to do something, you could do the JavaScript track on Exercism. I definitely don't recommend doing Code Wars because they're our competitor and we're better. There'll be times when it's good to do the Odin Project, but not yet. I don't want people to run before they can walk, otherwise you'll get overwhelmed. I want to take our time and really just let things settle in. Not getting overwhelmed is really a big key thing here. What other code learning platforms have you written? Well, I've just written Exercism, but we do have 2 million users and we're one of the original code learning platforms. So I'm going to think that one's good enough without having to have written others as well. The UX was, thank you for that compliment. The UX was designed by someone called Tyab Raja. Tyab's great. How many people signed up to the bootcamp? 400 have paid so far. I'm hoping there'll be a few more that drip in over the next few days. I'm going to send one more email out tomorrow. I'm also going to leave the bootcamp open for probably a month so people can join. We have like 10, 20 people a day joining at the moment. If someone joins a couple of weeks late, I'm okay with that. So I'll probably leave it open so people can join late if they need to. But obviously they'll miss all of these first live sessions. Where can we get a rubber duck? Any shop that sells bath things is normally my suggestion. Okay, I'm getting close. Do you think we'll be able to do all of that starting from zero? Yes. CSS is really easy. It's just taught badly. Everything's taught badly, honestly. CSS is like so simple, but if you don't learn it in the right way and you don't learn the fundamentals, it's totally overwhelming. Everything with code is like this. My aim is that you feel like we're going too slowly, because nothing is making you really like uncomfortable. We're going to sit in uncomfortableness. I'll talk about this in a minute, but I don't want you like doing something where you feel like it's kicking your butt, where it feels like you're really battling with this thing. Every session we're going to do is going to build on things that I want you to feel comfortable with by the end of that session. And that might mean it feels a bit slow at first, but it means that when you get to the end, you'll have actually understood each layer. It's like building I don't know if you know Jenga the game, but like a tower built on blocks. It's like building just a tower. Once the blocks at the bottom are solid, everything else comes easily. Okay, I need to keep going. I will talk about how AI will help software development yet. We're not going to talk about hosting a web server. I might do a couple of sessions on stuff like this towards the end, just because it's interesting. We might do a session or two on setting up Linux, but these things won't be compulsory. They'll be like bonus things that we might do. But yeah, I can always do like just workshops where I just show that. It's sort of second nature to me and a lot of the other mentors here. So we don't need to do a lot of prep. So if there's a demand, if people want that sort of stuff, I'm happy just to run a couple of hour workshop on these things later on. Is Exercism moving the needle for Exercism support? Yes, all of you that have bought the bootcamp have made a massive difference. Last month was the first month that Exercism ever didn't make a loss, largely thanks to all of you buying this. I'll talk a bit more about that another time, I think, because I want to keep going. But yeah, it's hugely beneficial to us. And Exercism, in case you don't know, Exercism is a non-for-profit, which is why everyone volunteers on it. We've been around for 10 years. We just rely entirely on donations. The bootcamp's the first thing we've ever done as a charged, like a non-free product. And we're going to start adding more non-free things just because it's the only way it's going to keep us going. But keeping education like as close to free as possible for me is a massively important thing. It's why I do all of this. So it will never be expensive, unaffordable. Like, we'll always keep it as cheap as we possibly can. You can use anything instead of a rubber duck. Yes, you don't actually need to buy a rubber duck. Just have something that you sort of dedicate to this course as something that is just your like programming pet. But don't spend more money if that's tight for you. Do we offer other courses as a follow-up? Yeah, we might do. Well, we will do. I don't know what yet though. Are we going to touch on advanced JavaScript? I don't know what advanced JavaScript is. We'll touch on Java. Well, I mean, we're going to do a lot of JavaScript. Well, I don't know. We'll see what you consider advanced as we go. I don't think you need to know it much advanced. You don't need to know advanced things to be able to make stuff. I really, this is one of the things I want to get across to people. One of the things in designing this course has been like working out at what point I can introduce different exercises that I want you to do. And honestly, within about 4 weeks, you'll have learnt enough things to be able to solve almost anything in the whole of the world of programming. I know that sounds ridiculous, and I'm not going to expect you to do that, but you don't need to learn all these advanced techniques to be able to make things. You just need to know these few fundamental things, and you can write terrible code with a few concepts that solves any problem. And it's a lot better for you to really learn these basic concepts first really well before worrying about all the advanced stuff that honestly you do not need to be a good developer. But we'll come back to all this. Right, okay, I'm going to keep going. This next bit's really important. I want you to listen to this because there's one place where this whole thing is going to go wrong. And that's if we all fall out with one another. And that might sound a bit dramatic, but we have people on this course from every corner of the world, honestly. And that means we have a lot of different cultures. And when you have people from a lot of different cultures, often we think we're talking to each other, but we're really talking past each other. And I've seen this a lot on Exercism. Like, we've helped we've helped millions of people. I've personally had discussions with tens of thousands of people, or seen discussions with tens of thousands of people. And the amount of times two people are trying to have a conversation and they're just failing to communicate well with each other. And things get toxic, people get annoyed at each other, people have misunderstandings. And it's not because one person's bad and the other person's good, but it's because culture clash is a real thing. In some cultures, speaking very directly is a really important thing. In some cultures, being quite soft and gentle and being overly kind is very important. A simple example of this is if I'm speaking to somebody from Germany. Now, I've learnt that when I criticise anything, if I say something is wrong, I start off firstly by telling somebody they're doing a great job. I say, you're doing a really great job. I really like these things. There's this one little thing here that I think you could improve slightly. Go away and think about that. But just be assured you're doing a great job. And that's how we communicate in England. If you go to a school in England, that's how teachers will teach to you. If you're in a workplace, that's how people will talk to each other. In Germany, if I spoke to somebody like that, they would be really insulted because they would think I was speaking to them like a child. And the way they would speak to me would be to say, you're doing this very wrong, sort it out. And that to them is the most polite way of communicating because for them, treating me like an adult who can take a bit of responsibility is really important. Now, I don't know, well, you're from a country, I don't know which country you're from because I'm speaking to lots of people, but in your country, there are lots of different ways that you communicate that are probably very normal to you, but will be very different to me or to other people. Our mentors come from lots of different countries. Our students come from lots of different countries. And so it's very, very important that we all keep the mindset that we're trying to learn, we're trying to be kind, we're trying to help each other. And that we communicate in a way that's very explicit about our intentions and about what we're trying to say. It's very important to be patient. If you say something and you get a response that feels quite abrupt or harsh, presume that person's just trying to help you get to a solution as quickly as possible. If you ask a question and somebody says a lot of fluff, like I would if I was English, with a lot of reassuring and kindness, don't take offence that they think you're being that you're a child. Presume they're trying to be kind, and in their culture that's how they do stuff. Now, I could talk about this all day. It's a fascinating topic, but I'm just going to really ask people to be super aware of this, to not expect people to read between the lines, be very explicit, be very verbose. If you come from a culture where people are used to like reading between the lines, Japan is a perfect example of this. It's one of my favorite cultures, but people will say things and expect you to sort of read between the lines. Let's try not to do that here, because it will cause confusion for people that are used to saying very direct things. The other final thing about just politeness is not to treat Discord or the forum or even email like instant messaging apps where you're just firing message, especially if you're talking to like a mentor about something. I want people to slow down on this course. I want people to take their time. I want you to spend time writing a really well-written message that explains whatever you want to say, and then send it, and then wait for the person to respond. Sometimes you might need to write another message clarifying things, but take your time and do things properly. Communicate slowly and carefully, and that will reduce and hopefully remove any risk of conflict that we have. So hopefully that makes sense. So I think everyone's just sort of nodding along in the comments. I'll link to something on Discord later which explains the 8 different axes of communication, because I think it's fascinating. And you can work out where you are in your country on those different 8 axes and see how you communicate differently to other people in the world. And you'll be really surprised if you haven't communicated a lot internationally, how different things are. Everyone good? Give me a yes if you're good. Everyone's still with me. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. I've got 2 people with me still at least. Good. All right, there's a few people still here. Excellent. Okay, this is good. Thank you. Right, I'm going to give you one more little bit of background, and then we're going to get into some meat. So a little known fact, something exciting for you, is that Exercism started in a boot camp. So we've come 360 degrees here. So Katrina Owen originally created Exercism, and she created it because she was a teaching assistant on a boot camp, and she found what we're saying here, that it's all well and good learning all of these principles, but if you're not just practicing things and if you're not talking about code with people, it's really hard to learn. And so she originally built Exercism as a place where you would solve lots of little exercises, and then she called them nitpicks. Volunteers, mentors would come along and they would nitpick at your code. They would tell you all of the little things that weren't perfect about it. And through that sort of feedback, you would learn how things improved. And that's been Exercism's ethos forever. It's evolved into more structured mentoring. But really, Exercism has been a place to learn by doing and learn by talking. And those 2 things are what the bootcamp's going to be about. Exercism itself is brilliant if you're a developer and you're practicing a language or learning a language, but it's not great if you're a beginner. And about half of the people that sign up to Exercism are beginners. And I've always really wanted to do something to help those people. And that's why the boot camps come around. And we've actually got a whole product that we're going to launch at the end of this year, which is for total beginners. It's going to be using a lot of the exercises you're using, but it's going to be without the sort of live teaching elements and with some other stuff. But really the bootcamp came around as a way of me wanting to test these exercises, but also to really get in the trenches with all of you and really make sure I understand every stumbling block that you have. And so I want you to be really open with me. This is the favour that you can do back to me and to Exercism on this course. And that is to tell us what's good, tell us what's not so good, tell us what could be better. We're going to be working to make the bootcamp as amazing as it can be for the next 6 months. I'm not doing anything else really for 6 months other than this bootcamp. We're going to be making the website itself and the interface as powerful as we can. We're going to be making the exercises and the projects as fun as we can. So I need to know whether you're enjoying it or not. I need to know whether you're finding it too hard, you're getting stuck, you're getting stressed. I need to know these things. So please tell me, please be open and honest with me about it. If you're struggling, presume that it's us not doing a good enough job rather than you not doing a good enough job. And just know that I'll be really open to that feedback. I am British, so I do like it when you wrap it up in cotton wool for me and make me feel warm and fuzzy while telling me that what I've made is rubbish. But don't be afraid to tell me that things need to be better. Okay, that's the end of the background. Let's talk a little bit about coding. I'm just going to drink some water. Okay. Programming is not hard. This is my number one message that I'm going to try and get across to you on this bootcamp. Programming is weird. And programming will feel totally unfamiliar to you. But programming's not hard. None of the things that you're going to learn are by themselves difficult. You'll see this today. I'm going to tell you 3 or 4 things, and they're all going to feel really logical, and they're going to make sense and be quite straightforward. But then when you come to do things, you're going to suddenly feel a bit overwhelmed and a bit stressed. And a lot of people's narrative is, oh, I'm really stupid. Why can't I do this? And I want you to have a bit more compassion for yourselves. And I want you to realize that the reason you can't do it is not because you're too stupid or it's too hard, but it's just that it's unfamiliar. And when things are unfamiliar, they feel hard. But as things get familiar, they feel really easy. If you look at a little child learning to walk, I mean, they're terrible at first. They just fall over constantly for years. But then eventually they suddenly can walk, and then they sort of waddle a bit and they're still useless. But then they can walk and they're great, and then they can run, and then they're better than us, and they can be doing cartwheels and somersaults and all the other things that make me very jealous. But they're not stupid for the first 2 years when they're not able to walk. They just haven't got familiar with it yet. And that's the same with coding. If you watch me or the mentors or other people coding, we're going to look really smart. We're going to look like these geniuses that can do stuff. But honestly, we've just been doing it for a long time, and we've just worked hard at getting good at it. When we started, we would have been challenged just as much. We would have found it just as hard as you might find it. And I really want you to have this mentality that you're not stupid, it's not too hard, you just need to build familiarity. And one of the most important things that you're going to do to build that familiarity is to take all of the concepts that I'm explaining to you and try and attach them to real world things. I don't want anything you're learning to feel abstract or fluffy. I want you to feel like whatever we say, you could pick it up and you could hold it. And we're going to talk about this. I'm going to just jump forward and just show you a little slide that we're going to look at in a little bit. So this is, hopefully you can see that. Let me just check. that works as we're doing the first thing. Yeah. So this is a diagram. You don't need to worry about what's on here yet. We're going to look at this. But these are programming concepts. They're called functions. They'll be very familiar to those of you that can code. They will be meaningless to those of you that can't. But when we talk about this, we're going to think of these functions not as some programming concept, but we're going to think of them as these machines, little machines, that sit on the shelves in a warehouse. And when you think of functions, when you're writing code, I want you to have these ideas in your head of, oh, this is a little machine that's sitting on a shelf in a warehouse. And I want you to really anchor these programming concepts. I want you to anchor them onto real world things like this. And if you do that, you're going to find everything a lot easier. And some of the things might feel a bit childish. They might feel a bit silly. You might think, oh, I want to be an adult and just learn this properly. This is how you learn it properly. You'll learn to code well by giving your brain something for these random abstract programming concepts to attach to. You need to be sticking this knowledge somewhere in your brain. And your brain is really, really good at stories. What humans are best at is stories. It's sharing stories with each other. And so if you can be coming up in your head or listening to the stories I tell you about these programming concepts, your brain's going to be able to make sense of stuff without having just to remember like random ideas that are totally abstract to you. And so in the rest of this lesson and the rest of this course, I'm going to ask you to really embrace this idea of the analogies that we show and everything else. I really want you to get on board with this. Make your own analogies. Come up with your own stories. The more you do that, the easier you're going to find everything. Does that make sense? I'm just reading these questions. What did I use? Yes, I have a Stream Deck. Can you see this? Ooh, it's a little Stream Deck. All of these buttons do things. My head's a bit cut off, isn't it? I just noticed that. Shall I just try and move that? Hold on. Move my head up a little bit for you all. This is where I destroy the whole screen trying to be clever. That's better, isn't it? I also have an Ember mug, which this is like my favourite possession. So this will keep my coffee warm for like an hour and a half. It has like a radiator in it that just radiates heat into your coffee and maintains it at the perfect temperature. So I'm not drinking cold coffee, even though it's been sitting here for 45 minutes. It's absolutely as hot as it can be still. Okay, it says the stream is stuttering a little bit. Oh yeah, we are stuttering a little bit. Hopefully that's a bit better. If it keeps stuttering, just tell me it stutters, okay? And I'll try switching on to the Wi-Fi. Sometimes this wired internet is worse than Wi-Fi. Hopefully you heard it all there. The audio is the main thing, right? Okay. Good, I think it's a bit better now. Okay, so that's my little call out to you to really, really embrace this way of learning. And the other thing I want to say is that when you're learning anything, coding is the same, you only learn when you struggle. If you want to get strong and you go to the gym, you don't lift little bits of paper repeatedly thinking, well, hey, I'm getting strong. You pick up weights and you lift heavy things. And it's only when you're lifting heavy things and doing hard things that you get stronger. And your brain is exactly the same. When you challenge yourself, you'll get better. If you get something right, if you solve an exercise first time, it's good practice, but you're not learning much. You only learn stuff when you get things wrong and you can learn from your mistakes. And I really want you to embrace that and really try hard to to think of learning to code a bit like being in a mental gym, where you need to do hard things, you need to lift heavy weights, and if you do that, your muscle, your brain as a muscle will get stronger. I'm just a bit distracted with the video stuttering, but I think it's okay now. I hope it is anyway. If it's not too distracting, I'll just keep going. Otherwise, we could be here a while. I'll turn my Wi-Fi on as well with the hope that both connect together. Okay. Let's crack on. The final thing I want to say about this sort of mindset thing is that, thank you all, that's good. I'll focus, I'm a bit distracted there. The final thing I want to say is that in this course, I want you to take your time. There's no prize for completing the exercises really fast. There's no prize for getting everything done as quickly as you can. There's no prize for anything, but if there was a prize, it would be for being really thoughtful and really precise. I don't know if you know the game Whack-A-Mole, where you have a little mole that pops up and you have to keep whacking it. There's some great videos of cats doing it on YouTube, which I highly recommend. But sometimes when you're coding, you find yourself playing Whack-A-Mole. You find yourself just like, nothing's working, you just try something else, you try something else. If you find yourself doing that, you're coding the wrong way. Coding, I like to say that when you write code, that's like you writing up your notes. Before you type in code into an editor, you should really be thinking of the solution. You should come up with the solution. If I've got a hard bit of software I need to write, I normally spend a day or so just thinking about it. Like, I'll walk a lot, I'll go and sit in a coffee shop and people watch. I'll just percolate things at the back of my mind, bounce ideas with myself, just be thinking about things. And then at some point, a picture just forms of how everything should sort of stick together. And then I'll just go and I'll type it up. And normally it works. You know, there might be a little tweak or two, but normally it works pretty much first time. And that's the mindset I want you to have while you're coding. Now, it's not going to work first time for you because you don't have the skills yet. But that principle of take your time to think about things. If things aren't working, don't just get frustrated and just randomly hack away at things. Just slow down and think like, why isn't this working? What's going on here? Like, what's this error actually mean? What do I expect it to do that it's not doing? Ask yourself these questions. I'm going to talk about asking questions in a minute, but just on a mindset thing, I just want you to really focus on staying calm, slowing down. If you find yourself getting stressed, just take a breath. Enter a Zen state, okay? Be the Zen programmer. That's your challenge. Learn how to program in a Zen way. And if you do that, you'll find everything a lot more fun because you'll be solving problems in a logical, relaxed way. You won't just be getting frustrated and getting annoyed with everything. And so as things progress and things are getting more complex and you're having to deal with more ideas, just keep coming back to that. Just slow down a bit. Think things through a bit more. And if you do that, you'll enjoy coding. I'm certain of it. Okay. Great question here. How are you able to learn multiple technical topics simultaneously? A bit of a tongue twister. You don't. Learn one thing at a time. That's my message to you. We're going to just be building slowly, thing after thing after thing, and everything will build on the bit that you learned before. We're going to be learning new things each week, but they rely on the idea that the thing you learnt the week before has sunk in by that point, and it will sink in by you doing exercises and by you practicing. So don't overly worry about trying to learn lots of things at once. My job is to keep things just really gradual and really like building Lego or Jenga or something. Okay. I've said a lot about this. I won't bang on too much, but one thing that's really important to understand is that programming is communication. We'll talk about this in a second, but when you're what programming is communicating with a computer. You are writing code that a computer is reading. And so the number one aim on this whole bootcamp is to communicate clearly. It's to communicate clearly with the computer, but also with yourself and with the mentors and everyone else. And asking questions is the key to that. We'll talk more about this as sessions go on. But there are three sort of questions or areas of questions that I want you to think about. If you brought a pen and you wanted to make some notes, this is the one thing that you're allowed to make some notes about, which is the questions you can ask yourself. So when something doesn't work, ask yourself, what did I expect to happen here? Start off with that. What did you expect to happen? What did you think your code should actually do? Like, why do you think your code should do it? Then what actually happened? What did the code actually do? They're separate things, like what was the result, but what actually led to it doing that? And then why are these two things not the same? Those are the sorts of questions that I want you to be slowly thinking about. And every time you get stuck, just start off by asking yourself those questions. And then comes our friend, the rubber duck, or the rubber fairy, or there's lots of other cool things that people have got as well. This is a bit of a silly thing, like it feels a bit maybe childish. But one of the things you learn as a developer is when you get really stuck, you often go to a colleague and you explain the problem you've got. And halfway through explaining the problem, you realise the answer. And one of the things you learn as you get more and more senior as a developer is that the art of just explaining what's going on, like explaining the problem, explaining your code, is often enough for your brain to go, oh, that's why it's not working. So the reason you've got these rubber ducks is that if you ask yourself those questions and they don't work, I want you to just sort of put the rubber duck here and say, okay, I'm going to explain this code to you like you're a rubber duck. And rubber ducks are not very good at coding. So when I say explain it like it's a rubber duck, you really have to explain it from the basics. So you have to say, okay, my code, line 1, is doing this thing. What does that mean? Well, it means it's doing this and this and this. Line 2 is saying, well, if this happens, then do this. And you explain it to the duck. And often you'll find, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true, often you'll find that just that nature of explaining out loud, it can be in your head if you want, but what's going on will mean that you crack the problem and you solve it. Your rubber duck's your friend. Use him. And then when you get really stuck, if the rubber duck can't help, and we know we're in serious trouble at the point the rubber duck can't help, then it's your turn to ask the mentors. The mentors are going to ask you those questions that I just read out to you. They're going to ask you what your code's doing, what you expect it to do, what it's actually doing, what the difference is. So you can save yourself a lot of hassle by, when you ask your question to the mentors, giving them that information. You'll post the code and you'll say, here's the code. And then you'll say, I really expect it to do this because line 1, 3, and 5 do this. But it's not working. Instead, it's doing this. Be specific with them. Ask questions in a really calm, precise, specific manner. And then they'll be able to help you and they'll really enjoy helping you. If instead you just ask, like if you just send a message like, my code doesn't work, what's wrong with it? They're not going to really enjoy helping you. They're probably going to get annoyed eventually. So it's your responsibility to ask good questions. And then it's the mentor's responsibility to ask you good questions back. Their job isn't to give you answers. Their job isn't to tell you why the code's not working. You need to work out why the code's not working. Their job is to ask you the questions that will make you realise why the code's not working. You know, they'll say, is line 2 really doing that? Are you sure? Go and just double check that line. And I mean, that's probably a big hint that line 2 isn't doing what you think it's doing. But you need to go and work out why it's not doing it. They're not going to be obtuse about it. Like if you've been stuck for 3 hours in a conversation, they're not just going to keep on not telling you the answer. But honestly, every time they tell you the answer, you've lost because you haven't worked it out yourself. Every time they ask you a question and you work it out, you've won because your brain has pieced those two random neurons together and sparked the answer. And then the brain will reinforce those neurons. That's how learning works. So asking good questions to yourself, to your rubber duck, and to your mentors, that's how you're going to get solutions. I'm just going to read the comments. Okay, good comments. Thank you for your support, everyone. Really appreciate it. I've got to admit, I was somewhat nervous coming into this. We've put a lot of effort into this, and there was a lot of sort of excitement. And streaming to like 400 people is, I don't know how many people are live, but there's 400 people that will watch this anyway, is always a bit nerve-wracking as well. Is this therapy? Life is, yeah, coding is therapy. That's the solution. Okay, good. Everyone seems happy enough. I'll just pause for another few seconds just in case anyone's got any more questions. And then we are going to we're going to dive in. I'm going to sort of move away from me on full screen, and we're going to look at a couple of practical things. Okay, 216. What the 216 watching currently means is that I'll get 200 emails afterwards saying I couldn't join the live stream. Can you send me a link? I can't tell you how many emails I've replied to day in, day out for the last couple of weeks. It's been a bit wild. Good. All right, everyone seems happy. Thank you so much for the support. Okay. Right, we're going to jump over here. Where should we start? Okay, let's start here. So, you can now hopefully see Discord. Tell me if you can see Discord. I'll pause a second. Excellent, good. Okay, welcome to Discord. So for some of you, this is going to be a really boring 5 minutes because you all know what Discord is. For some of you, you're quite new to Discord, and I'm just going to cover a couple of things. So we're going to be using Discord on this as a social space. That's really important. We have a separate forum, which we'll jump into in a minute, which is a space for getting help, asking questions. Discord is primarily a social space. It's a space to motivate each other. It's a space to hang out, to chat. If you're doing some exercise that day, you can be like, hey, I'm doing some exercise. Is anyone else around? You can say, yeah, I just solved this exercise. And everyone else can put some heart emojis on your post. It's a place to encourage each other. I'm going to be there. The mentors will be there. But we're not going to be living in there. Every hour I spend in Discord is an hour I'm not making the bootcamp better in another way. So we won't be like there full time or anything. But I do encourage you just to spend like half an hour each week at least, just like hanging out, chatting, supporting each other. There's 400 people here. If you all go on to be professional developers, in 5 years, 10 years from now, you'll have the best professional network out of anyone in the world. So it's a really good opportunity. See all these other people that are in this chat with you now. Like, you can basically hang out with each other, get to know each other, support each other. It's a massive opportunity. I wish I'd had that when I was learning. Some of you don't have much time. Some of you barely have enough time to stick with the exercises. Spending your time in Discord is not a good use of your energy. Don't do it. If you haven't got the time to do it, there is no pressure. You can uninstall Discord if you've installed it and never look at it again. You don't have to use Discord. I want to be really clear on that. But if you want to get excited, want to have some emojis, that's the place for you. At the moment, there's one channel, which is this bootcamp channel that you can see on the screen right now. You can see lots of messages in here. Thank you all for introducing yourself. It's been really great to have those. You can see this little pinned post at the bottom. This post just sort of sticks there. It constantly gets regenerated. It's just a reminder to keep things tidy and use threads, because otherwise things just get carnage. You can start a thread. If I want to reply to Sweet Chai, I can come over here, click on these 3 dots on the right hand side, and then click on create thread. And that will just open a little side and create a thread. And I can then reply, and that keeps things nice and neat. Oops, you see, I can't type. So here's a good example. When you make a mistake, and this was a deliberate mistake, honestly, don't then write another post going that and double posting. It's annoying. Delete it, edit your post. That's not annoying. Double posting drives me up the wall. Don't treat Discord like an instant messenger. It's a really frustrating thing as it's pinging noises in everyone's ears. Just slow down. Make sure you put an exclamation mark and put an exclamation mark, not an @ sign. Slow down a bit, write things properly. If you make a mistake, it's fine, edit your post. If you want to add something else to it, edit your post. You can just press the up arrow, by the way. It's like super easy. Up arrow in Discord just edits the post. Escape cancels that. Learn these shortcuts, make your life easier. There's lots of channels. This is Exercism's normal Discord. There's a lot of channels. There's, the Bootcamp channel with all of these threads. There's a mentors channel for Bootcamp mentors. But there's all these other normal channels as well. Some of them you might just really not want to be part of. You might find there's a job adverts channel. I don't have time to read all these job adverts. So I just mute it. Right click on it, come down, and there's a mute option. It's unmuted at the moment. Just here, mute channel, until I turn it back on. Beautiful. If you don't want those to appear, say this, I've got another one here, Discord noise. You can just come up here and just say hide muted channels. And that will make all those muted channels disappear. Discord noise is now gone. So that's a really easy way of keeping this clear. Choose which channels you want on here, get rid of the ones that you don't want. Nice and easy. You'll notice as well that people are color-coded. You can click on someone's profile to see a little bit about them. Heroin Dark here is pink because they're a bootcamp attendee. So all of you should be pink. Some of you are purple. Let me find a purple person. Purple. There's definitely some purple people somewhere. Oven is purple and has a heart by them. That means that Oven is an insider. That means they've donated. If you want to become an insider, if you've got a bit of spare cash, if you're enjoying this and want to tip me or tip Exercism, you can donate on Exercism. If you donate $10 or more, you become an insider, you get a couple of bonus things. If you can't afford that, don't do it. If you don't want to do that, don't do it. It's fine. I'm not asking you to do it. It's amazing if you do. You can also spot mentors. Mentors are, I'll go to the mentors channel. Mentors will have a whole load of colours because they're all sorts of people. But you can click on someone and see this is a maintainer. Maintainers are people that write the Exercism language tracks. You can see they're a super mentor, which means they've mentored lots of people. I can't remember how many. You can see they're a bootcamp mentor. You can see that they are an insider and a mentor in general. Some people are also moderators who have some extra privileges. So if you're not sure who you're talking to, just take a moment to click on them and just find out what roles they've got and who they are. It's a helpful way to know if you're talking to a mentor, you're talking to another student. Just makes things nice and easy. Any other questions? Oh, one more thing actually. At the moment, there's just this one channel for Bootcamp. I probably will have other channels. I always find it's better to start off just with one channel and then add other channels when they're needed. If you give people 20 channels to start with, it just gets a bit confusing. People don't know where they're supposed to be. So yeah, we'll work out that we need extra channels, put them in when we do. If you're not pink and you don't have access to this, then that probably means you don't have access to this. There's a Bootcamp sign-ups questions channel here. Just post in here saying, I don't have the role like these people have done. And we'll work it out. But the reason that you probably don't have the role is that you need to go to a special link, which is this one. I'll post it in that channel now. So if you go to that link that I've just posted, and this is on the dashboard page as well for the bootcamp, it's down here. But if you go over here, you'll see a button under this Discord section where you can connect your Discord and your Exercism account. Once you do that, give it 5-10 seconds, and then you should go pink. If you find you don't go pink, there's normally a couple of reasons. The most common one is that whoever's just shared this has shared it very publicly. Kind but slight error. The other reason might be that you are connecting the wrong Discord account to Exercism. So some people have 3 or 4 or 5 Discord accounts. Maybe you set one up years ago, and when you authenticate it, it authenticates one from years ago and not the one now. If that's the case, just double check that, but you can just post on here and just say, could you connect this account to the right one? And I'll switch them around for you. But try that first. Max just worked it out. Nice work, Mac. Yeah, try and figure it out if you can. And if not, just ping me and I'll sort it out. Cool, that's Discord. Let me just check, see if I find any other questions. Good. Okay, everyone seems happy. Okay, we are now going to look at the forum. So the forum you get to by going to forum.exercism.org. Let me turn that into a link. Still doesn't work great. Good colour checks, people. I like it. You can also just check by looking in the Bootcamp channel. If you can see the Bootcamp channel, which is different to the Bootcamp signups questions channel, then you already you know you're in. Yeah, if you disconnect and reconnect, it should work. If not, I'll go through ones that aren't pink later who post in this channel and try and work it out for you. So forum.exercism.org. Forum. This is the place you're going to go to get help, get answers to your questions. This is a space for support. It's a classic old forum. If you've been around the internet for a while, you'll know the forums of old. Well, this is one of those. Again, you should be connected. If you're not connected, just post somewhere. Post a normal post in, I tell you what, I'll make a topic right now. Okay, so this is now just on the general exercism category. So let me explain how categories work. So you click on this at the top, you'll get to the Exercism forum. There are lots of categories on the Exercism forum: Exercism stuff, programming stuff, support, social, other things. This is the Bootcamp section up here. It's again reserved just for you. You can see by the little padlock. If you click on that, you'll see Bootcamp topics. And then you'll see here, this all button here. Let's make things a bit bigger. Here, there are subtopics. There's exercise help for when you get stuck on an exercise. There's conceptual help for when you get stuck with concepts. So if you don't know, if you don't understand a programming concept and you want help with it, post here in general. And meta discussions. Meta means about the bigger picture. So a meta discussion about this would be a discussion about the bootcamp in general. If you go to this first post, it says welcome to the bootcamp forum space. It's pinned to the top of the bootcamp category. Click on here. I have written you this long post that explains what to do. Please read it and understand what to do. If you've got any questions, it explains how to answer questions. I have to approve certain people who Discord thinks are spammers. I'm now going to get blocked from Discord as well because we're going to hit rate limits, I can tell. sometimes discourse, this is discourse, which is really confusing, which is why we just call it the forum, but the software is called discourse. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are connecting. I'll give you a bit of behind the scenes. It's always nice to have a bit of behind the scenes access to things. So we have all of these. These are people who are now connecting to the forum. All of these jobs are happening in the background. One day all of this will feel easy for you. But these are all these different users. This is all of you that are signing up right now, connecting things. But we're only allowed to update so many things on the forum every few seconds, otherwise it blocks us. It's called rate limiting. And when that happens, they get put in these queues. And so many times you'll try and connect onto Discord, but so many people are doing it at once, discourse, but so many people are doing it at once that things get a bit slow. Where were we? And you don't immediately get the right permissions, but it should happen. But if not, just post in this thread and we'll get there. A couple more things to tell you about discourse. So firstly, we have Flare. Flare are the little pictures that appear next to your name. You can see I have this little wizard hat next to my face. Once you're in the bootcamp, you can go click on your face, click on the profile and click on preferences. You can scroll down and you can choose your flare. If you're a bootcamp mentor, you can choose the mentor one. If you're an attendee, you can choose the attendee one. And then whenever you post around the forum, we'll know that you're on the bootcamp. And you can also, for mentors, spot the ones that are mentors as well. You make new posts on here by clicking on new topic. They're called topics. So if I make a sample topic, you give it a title. So firstly, make sure you're in the right category. Is this about an exercise? Yes. Tell me what it's about. It is about the drawing scrambled house exercise. Write something like that. I can't get the left window in the right spot. Tell us your problem in detail, like a paragraph. I've been trying, blah, 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 blah. Give us some information. Then, important, when you want to share code, say we've got some code that is, I'm just going to find some code, just paste in here. Here's a bit of code. So here's some code. Don't worry about what this code does. You can see how, look at the right hand side, this is a preview of what it's going to look like. You see how annoying and difficult this is to read. Instead, what we want to do is wrap the code like this. And now look how beautiful and easy to read the code is. It's got indenting, it's got colours, it's got all sorts of things. These are called code blocks. If you use code blocks, everyone will love you. You will be all of the mentor's favourite friend. If you don't use code blocks and you just paste random code in, everyone will be really frustrated. If you upload images, screenshots of your code, you're basically saying to our mentors who are blind, and yes, we have blind mentors, that I don't want your help. So don't do that either. It's really rude. Making code blocks is like such an important skill to learn on day one. So I'm really nailing this home. To do a code block, to make a code block, you need to put 3 backticks. Backticks are not quotation marks. They are not this. That is a quotation mark. They're not a double quotation mark. They're not a semicolon. They are not a comma. A backtick is a tick that goes backwards. On my keyboard, it is next to the Z key. On some keyboards, it is next to the 1 key. But it literally looks like, I'm going to make this like so zoomed in. I can't get that zoomed in. But it looks like this. Hopefully you can see that. Now you can also use this box here to make a code block, this button here that looks like code. This is a symbol for code. You might not be familiar with that. You'll see this everywhere when people want to talk about code. So if you want to see what these are, click on this and then work out how to make this happen on your keyboard. Now this same thing works on Discord. If I'm over here and I'm in the Bootcamp channel, I can say this is a code block. Can't tell you how much the mentors will appreciate it if you get into the habit of doing this right. And if you forget, again, edit your post. So if I'd accidentally there written I love coding like this, just press up. Ta-da! Beautiful. Nice, good. Okay, this is good, folks. I'm pleased with this. So close yet so far. Go on, Mac, edit it, edit it. Okay, good. I'm going to let you all carry on doing that. I'm just going to read. Tell me if you've got any, this is like if you've got any questions on the forum or on Discord, this is your opportunity to tell me before I move on. Don't talk to me about getting connected now. I'll do that later for you on Discord. But tell me if you've got any questions about how things work or if where you should post or anything's not clear. Tell me about that. Ask me about that now. Yeah, the forum is like a little machine that just sits away running discourse. So if you've not come across discourse before, that's discourse. You can Google it. It's a forum application. We have a blind mentor. We also have, so last year we ran a challenge called, what year was it? 48 in 24, where you had to complete 48 exercises. 48 exercises? Yeah. 48 exercises in 3 different programming languages throughout the year. So like, how many is that? 100 and something. 140 something, 4 maybe. Someone do the maths. And somebody who uses our website, totally blind, works purely off a screen reader, completed that in all of those languages, writing assembly, writing like 48 different languages, all totally blind for the website. One of the things that we really care about on Exercism is making sure it is accessible for people that are blind. You can use our site. If you're blind, you can use the editor. Screen readers will work. Modals work. Everything works. It's a lot of effort. Lots of people have helped us get there. But yeah, it's something I really care about. Okay, let's keep going. Why threads versus replies on Discord? Threads just keep things ordered. Replies just mean everything it stays in the main channel. And it's basically just like impossible to read when you have hundreds of people posting. Someone asks if you can add language after the first 3 ticks. Yeah, so you can. So you can write, if you write this as your starting one, then that will highlight it as JavaScript. Okay, good. Everyone seems happy. Lots of people are writing. This is great. Okay. We've covered Discord. We've covered discourse. I think we're good. Let's... my computer's gone a bit wild. Hold on. Okay. Good. Okay, we're halfway through, and we're already an hour and a half through. I think I'm just going to take a 2-minute break, just because my voice is going, and I need to drink some water. And I also have a really cool taking a break slide that Nicole made that I'm going to put on. Everyone get some water, pop to the toilet if you need it. Get yourself a biscuit or whatever snack you use, and I'll be back in like, what's the time? I'll be back at 25 past whatever hour it is for you. Unless you're in India I'll be back in like 5 minutes, but if you're in a country where time zones shift by half an hour, it's not 25, it would be like 55. But for everyone else, 25. Say 5 minutes from now. Cool. Thanks, everyone. We're back. Can you hear me? Awesome. Hello, everybody. Okay, let's do this. So far we've talked about everything you need to know, I hope, for the bootcamp to get started. Your number one task in the next couple of days is to make sure you're on Discord, if you're going to be. You're on Discourse, you've posted, said hello, just got involved. Just make sure you're set up everywhere. That's one half. And then the other half is that you've solved the first few exercises. There are going to be 4 or 5 exercises to do before we get to the next session on Monday. Monday is going to be a bit more of a technical session. I'm going to look at some more complex concepts. So my job is to give you just enough information now to get you to solve those exercises over the next couple of days. And those exercises are pretty straightforward. And really they just get you using code for the first time. I'm going to start off in the rest of this video by looking at what coding is, what it means to code, and the very basics of it. So I said earlier that coding is communication. It's a way of you talking to the computer. It's a way of you giving instructions specifically to the computer. And that's important because you really are instructing the computer. You're the one that's in charge here. If the instructions you give the computer are clear and they make sense, the computer will do what you say. If they're not clear, if they don't make sense, the computer will either give you an error or the computer will do something unexpected. Now, one of the good things about programming, and one of the things that sort of makes the whole thing make sense, is that if you ask a computer to do something twice, and you give it the same code twice, the same instructions twice, it'll do the same thing. Now, there are obviously variables that come into that. If you ask it to use a random number, and it comes up with a different random number 2 different times, then it will do different things. But if all of the sort of inputs, all of the things you give it are the same, and your code is the same, then what it gives you out the other end, what it does, should also be the same. So coding is the process of writing code. Code is the instructions that we give to a computer. And those bits of code together are what we call a program. And that's why we call it programming, because we're making a program out of some lines of code. I really want you to take on board at this point that when it comes to coding, when it comes to I have a lot of dropped frames apparently. Let me just check. Let me just close some windows. Let me just close a few things. Okay. Good. All right, that seems better now. Okay. It turns out I was still connected to the VPN I have to use to connect to the servers, which probably was not helping at all. Sorry about that. Okay. So, where was I? Yeah. Okay. So I was saying, one of the things I really want you to understand and really internalize is that when it comes to coding, you're in charge. You're not in a battle against a computer where you want it to do something and it doesn't want to do it back. The computer is not your enemy. It's It's not a combatant that you're fighting against. You and the computer together are doing a dance, but you're leading that dance. You're giving the instructions. You tell the computer what to do, and the computer will do it back. The computer's not weird. It won't play up. You see people getting really frustrated that computers don't do what they want. When the computer doesn't do what's expected of it, it's because some developer somewhere has made a mistake or has not anticipated something that's going to happen. And we can't anticipate everything, which is why we get mistakes. But it's important to really have this mindset that you're in charge of giving instructions to the computer, and the computer will just follow whatever instructions you give it. So if something's not going right, it's likely that the instructions you've given it aren't correct. They're not clear. They don't handle all of the different scenarios. And I want you to really sort of start to internalize that right now, in day one. If something doesn't go well, don't get frustrated. Don't get annoyed. Just think, okay, I've not communicated what I'm trying to do here clearly to the computer. Where do I need to refine how I'm communicating? I said at the beginning, programming is all communication. In the same way that having a conversation with somebody is all about clarity, all about saying the right things in the right way, it's exactly the same when you're coding. So I want to think about visualizing a program. This is really important. I just talked about that dancing between two sides. And I want that to be a mentality that you've got. There are two parts to programming. All of these diagrams will appear inside the bootcamp as well, so you can see them in the higher definition later. There is the two participants as you and the code that you write. And then there is the computer who is reading the code and acting upon that code. In our world, for this bootcamp, the computer that's acting on that code is someone called Jicky. And this is Jicky. Someone's asking where the exercises are. You can't access the exercises until this video is finished, and then you'll be able to get to them. So this is Jicky. Jicky is going to be your friend on this journey, I hope. And Jicky is someone that can interpret a programming language and make it happen. And there are lots of different characters that can interpret different programming languages. The programming language Python or JavaScript or Rust all have characters that live inside the computer that can interpret them. Now we call these characters compilers or interpreters or other technical words, but you don't need to really think about that. You just need to think about a man, could be a woman if you like, but Jicky is a man, mainly because I modelled him on myself, who lives inside a computer and who is taking the instructions that you give and is executing them, is doing what you asked. And the whole of coding is just giving Jicky, in this case, the right instructions. And in part one of the bootcamp, we're going to be learning Jicky script. Jicky script is a programming language that I've written for the bootcamp. We've written Jicky script because learning a language that's specifically designed for beginners has meant that we've been able to add a whole load of features to the user interfaces and the environments you're working that will make it really easy and mean that we can have a lot more fun exercises and make things a lot more interactive. But everything you're going to learn in this language Jicky script, you'll be able to very, very easily use when we move on to JavaScript later on the course. It'll be very similar. But this is Jicky, and I have written Jicky, I've made Jicky, I have coded Jicky. And Jicky is going to be there interpreting those instructions and making things happen. So Jicky sits there in his little world, and there are lots of different types of instructions that he can understand. These are just some examples. He can stick these things together. He can do this thing 5 times. He can use this bit of code. He can say, if I do this, then I do that. He can remember things that he can then use later. He can give users an error out. And we're going to cover all of these different things, all these different ways that we can do. But the key thing to understand is that everything you're going to be doing is putting instructions onto a board for Jicky to come along and interpret. Any questions about that so far? Just up to that very basic point. We're going to dig into more complex stuff next. Okay. All right, good. So, and I really just want to add on here, like when I learned to code, this is sort of the mental model that I had, and honestly, I still have. Like, I understand how computers work all the way down to the zeros and the ones. I don't think of that. Like, I really, in my head, think of a little man inside the computer who's doing what I tell him. It's an analogy that will last you to the most senior of points in a career. I think it's important and helpful. Isn't JavaScript beginner friendly? No, not at all. Every language is beginner friendly to some extent, but JavaScript is a weird language. Like it's one of the least designed languages that exists. It's just sort of, it was written in a weekend originally, and then it's just had bits stuck onto it ever since. There's a great talk. I'll send you later. Remind me later to send it to you all. It's by a friend of mine, did it at a conference many years ago, that basically just shows how nothing in JavaScript does what you expect it to do. It's like probably the most important language you can learn, but it's a terrible programming language in lots and lots of ways. And a lot of people have worked on trying to make it better over the years. I enjoy using it, don't get me wrong, I like using JavaScript, but it is not a language that will set you up with good principles and make sense very well. But everything that we're learning, you can think of as like a subset of JavaScript. It's like the little core bit of JavaScript that does make sense, and you can learn all of that bit really well, and then not have to get into any of the terrible bad habits that come around it. But we'll worry about that later. Jicky is not like Scratch. No, Scratch is a visual language. Everything you're doing is going to be actually just writing code. You will see it in a second. It's just a normal programming language as opposed to, say, Scratch, which is, it's a good example, actually. It's like JavaScript is like English. They're both terrible languages. Like English is not a language that if you were trying to learn how to speak, English would not be the language that would teach you grammatical sense and would teach you all of the habits you want to get into. English is a language that you can sort of just anyone can get along in, and it makes sense. You can put the words in most random orders and it will work, but it doesn't really teach you very good language. Okay, let's keep going. So, Jicky takes instructions. Jicky can follow lots of instructions, but to actually do anything useful, Jicky needs to be able to interact with the world and needs to be able to use other bits of functionality. So the first thing I want you to, and mainly the only thing really today that you need to really get a good grasp on, is that in Jicky's world, you can think of it as a warehouse. That's how I think of it. You've got Jicky living in a warehouse with some instructions, with some shelves. And on these shelves, Jicky has these little machines. There are 3 machines here that you can see. Machine 1 is called move, machine 2 is called turn right, and machine 3 is called turn left. And Jiki can use these machines, and the vast majority of what you do in programming is using these machines, or we call them functions, using these functions. So let's just start by having a little example. If I can find my cursor. Okay. 1 second. Okay. So this is inside the bootcamp. You'll be able to see inside the bootcamp in a little bit yourself. But this is the first exercise you're going to do. And this exercise is going to be you solving a maze. This is the maze. This is a little character that lives at the top left corner of the maze. And our job is to get the character to walk around and end up down here. Now, a minute ago, we just talked about these boxes. We've got 3 of them. We've got move, we've got turn right, and we've got turn left. And in order to solve this maze, we're going to need to use these functions, these little machines. These are the instructions, effectively, that Jiki can understand for this exercise. He can understand how to move. And if we just write this for a second, don't worry about the brackets, you can see he moves. And we can turn left, in which case he turns left. And we can turn right, in which case he turns right. I'm simplifying it a little bit, but really this is what coding is. We have a whole load of instructions that we can give to a computer, and the computer is going to follow those instructions. Now, as things move on, we're going to get more and more complex instructions and more combinations of instructions. But programming is really just like Lego. You have all these blocks, different shaped blocks, and you want to put them together to make something bigger. And you might put together some sort of component. You might put together a tree. And then you might put together another tree, and then you might put them together with a house. And all of these little bits fit together neatly to build something bigger. And that's really what programming is. So if we go back to our slides a second. So we've got these 3 boxes. Let's look at what these actually are. So a box, or a function rather, I should say, a machine, has a name. And the name always appears in the middle in these diagrams of the machines. It's always lowercase letters in Jiki script. It's different in different languages, but in Jiki script, it's always lowercase letters. And we use an underscore to divide words. So for turn left, we have turn underscore left. And you can see that's the same thing that we wrote over here when we have turn right, turn underscore right. As I say, don't worry about the brackets for a second. So each of these functions that we use, each of these machines that we use, have a name like this. On the right, you can see the code. This is the code that we've just written. Move, turn left, then turn right. Each of these instructions gets run. We say we run code. It gets handled by Jiki, gets run by Jiki, in order. So we've got first here move, and then second move right, turn right. Jiki will do the first line, then he'll do the second line, then he'll do the third line. So what does it mean to do a line, I'm saying here? So really it means, okay, if we write turn left and then have these brackets, which I'll come to in a second, it just means Jiki is going to go and get the turn left machine off his shelves, and he's going to use it to do whatever he knows how to do with it. Now, turn left in this point literally means turn a character left. you don't have to worry about how the character is turning left. I mean, if you think about what's actually going on here, for this character to turn left, if I go back and change this to actually be turn left. So to turn left here, there is so much happening. Like, there are so many things that are occurring, all the way down to, you know, this visual of him turning left being beamed down the internet onto your screen, and pixels on your screen lighting up at different elements. And really what's happening is just lots and lots of functions all of the way down. Functions that say turn this character left, which in my world might mean, okay, animate this thing, which then means, okay, in a web browser we have to do this, which then means, okay, on a screen recorder we have to do this, which means, okay, we have to package this up and send it down a cable down the internet to come out the other end. It's functions on functions on functions, little machines all the way down. And one of the most important things about coding, and what will stop you from getting overwhelmed, is that you just deal with the level you're at. So the level that we're working at here, we just have three things. We can only do three things. We can move, we can turn left, or we can turn right. We don't need to worry or think about anything else. And one of the things that will make you good at programming in general is just to stick with the little bit of the world that you're in. And I'm talking to the people here who are maybe more experienced, and who, a lot of people who are experienced say, I know all the basics, I know how to do everything, but I try and build a big program and it's just really overwhelming. I can't get everything to fit together. It's normally because everything becomes too complex, because you're not just sticking to small little chunks of levels, small chunks of code. And in this bit and this exercise today, all we're doing is these three things: moving, turning left, turning right. So I've lost my button. So when Jiki does something, he takes a machine off the shelf and uses it. And you've seen now a couple of places I've explained these brackets. We're going to see these brackets more in a moment. But we have the name of the function that we put in code, and then we put two brackets. These are round brackets. These are the brackets that are above 9 and above 0 on most keyboards, I think on every keyboard. And you just write a line of code with the name of the function you want to run, and then two brackets, and that will run that function. So if we go back here and I solve this a little bit, we can think through what we want to do. Okay, we want to move a couple of times. We can click on this. Okay, now we want to turn left. You can see that's happening. Now we want to move another couple of times. Okay, oh, I walked into a wall. So within the interface here there are a few different types of errors you're going to get. So the most obvious error is when you do something that doesn't work, that results in an exercise failing. So in this situation, I tried to walk into a wall. And in doing that, I then get an error. I didn't reach the end of the maze. I have to change my code and write again. If I change this to now say turn left, hit that again, I now turn left. So this is the flow that you're going to be using. There are also other errors you could have. So for example, if I leave the closing bracket off here and then hit this, I'm going to get an error saying, oh, did I forget the end parentheses when trying to call the turn left function? So these are parentheses. I call them brackets, but people call them parentheses. So these are some of the different types of errors you're going to get. When you get errors, like this is normal. It is normal to get errors. I want you to really reinforce this. And you look at this, you read it says there's an end parenthesis missing. Oh yeah, okay, I've missed that end parenthesis. And now things work again. If you miss the first thing, it will come up and say, did you miss the start parentheses? So we've tried to make these error messages really explicit. Somebody asked why we're not using JavaScript. Well, it's because we couldn't have nice error messages like this, very easily at least, if we use JavaScript. Whereas in JavaScript, all of these nice error messages get built into the language. And when we get further down the road, that's going to become really important for you. Just to talk a little bit about this user interface, this is where you're going to be doing a lot of your work. On the right-hand side here, we have instructions. On the left-hand side up here, we have a place to write code. And then on the bottom, we have the output of your code, if you like, the thing that happens. We're going to look at a couple of different exercises in a second. You'll see different examples. There's a couple of bits of language on this page that are probably a bit confusing. Check scenarios is a bit weird as language. It makes more sense later on when there's lots of different scenarios we give you in an exercise, and it will test lots of things. Don't worry too much about that for now. Just trust that you hit the big purple button and it makes stuff happen. You can resize all of this. Just be aware that if you resize things a little bit too much, you can sometimes, this right size gets a bit squeezed. I'm sort of too zoomed in. But yeah, so if you squeeze this all the way down, sometimes it loses the right side. So if that happens, just make this slightly bigger. But you'll get access to all of this in a second. Something else to show you, you can use this slider to step through the code. So actually to sort of step through line by line and see what's happening on each line. And this little toggle button here explains what's actually happened on each line. So this called the turn left function. If you click it and turns left, this moves, turn left, etc. So in a second, not in a second because we haven't got enough time, but at the end of this, I'll give you access to this and you can go and this will be the first one you should do. Go find the maze project. You'll have a page that looks like this with different projects on. Click into the maze one and then manually solve the maze. And you can start to fill all this out and your aim is to get down to this green square. Any questions on this so far? I'm just going to read questions on the side, but is there anything that I've said that doesn't feel clear and hopefully relatively straightforward? Good question by Green Nature. Green Nature, by the way, posted a lovely introduction yesterday in Discord that got eaten up by our spam bot, which was annoying, spam filter. I did repaste it, but sorry about that. Will there be hotkeys? We've not added any to this yet, but that's something that we can do that this week coming for you. Yeah, we'll add a few keys to make it a little bit easier. I don't think we added any. Yeah, we'll be improving this whole UI for the bootcamp. We've built this whole bootcamp just for you all. Like over the last few weeks, we've built this from scratch. So yeah, we want to make it a good experience for you. So if you've got suggestions on how we can improve this like interface or anything else, please just let us know, and we'll be tweaking this over the next coming days, weeks, months. Lots of people saying it's good. I'll link, so at the end of this dashboard page that you have, I will press a magic button and this will change this into, and you will instead see something that looks like this. But I just want to make sure it all works fully before I do that, because we've only just pushed this live ready for this now. So I don't want to sort of cause loads of disruption by doing it in the middle of the course. And also everyone will just go and stop listening and start messing around. So that's what I would do. So we'll just wait to the end of the course and then we'll do it. The programming language is called JikiScript. And it's written like this. Yeah, definitely don't jump ahead. This is the key thing. Like, if you start jumping ahead, you may as well not do this bootcamp. Like, the reason you're doing this bootcamp is that you're trusting me to put together a syllabus that means week by week by week, your knowledge is internalizing. If you don't do that, you'll just overwhelm yourself and you'll do what everyone does, learn a million concepts and then have no idea how to piece them together, feel totally overwhelmed. It's not hard to learn what a loop is. It's not hard to learn what a conditional is. What's hard is feeling so comfortable with each thing as you go that it doesn't take any brain energy to use them. So this week, well, the next 3 days, all we're going to do is call some functions like this. And that's going to feel so easy to you that it's then stuck in and we've won. We win if things feel easy at the end of each week. We lose if things still feel a bit tough at the end of each week. So that's my focus. What if you make code that doesn't take the shortest path? That's a good question. So that's fine. You can do whatever you want on this one. Very soon, we're going to be writing, like, I can't remember if it's on Monday or the week after, but you're going to be writing code that automatically solves this maze. So you're going to literally write code that means I can give you 10 mazes, and you see these 10 these scenarios that you can see on screen. These will give you a load of scenarios, and you're just going to have one piece of code that solves any maze. That's going to be like one of your assignments, I think, next week. And at that point, we do check that it takes the shortest path. But in this first manual thing, you can take a very long higgledy-piggledy path if you so desire. There's not a check for that. Out of curiosity, what is the Bootcamp interface built in? So this is, as is everything in your browser pretty much, this is JavaScript, HTML and CSS. We're using React for this, but it could be anything. It's only React because that's what Exercism uses. But it could be any language. But by the end of the course, you'll certainly be able to make something that looks like this. There's probably some advanced functionality in here that would be a big like place to get to. But there are lots of little bits of this you can certainly be able to make by the end of the bootcamp. But yeah, this is a JavaScript, CSS, HTML with React on the front end, and then the back end is all Ruby, Ruby on Rails, as is the whole of Exercism. Any more questions? What are the important things to remember in programming apart from the 2 questions you mentioned earlier? Right now, just like the important things are just to stay calm and just take it one step at a time. Like it's not hard to be able to solve this maze, but like what you're actually doing is now calling functions. Like calling functions sounds a bit scary, a bit hard. Like 5 minutes ago, you didn't know what a function was. Well, some of you did, but a lot of you didn't know what a function was. You didn't know how to call a function. Now you know that you write a function's name and you put 2 brackets and you've called a function. Like, but it's not hard. Like, it's not hard to call a function, but it's very unfamiliar. If I say to you, call a function, your brain's still like trying to catch up a little bit with what I mean by that. And this is what the bootcamp's going to be about. It's going to be about you just doing things like this over and over again. They'll get more advanced and more complex. Don't worry, they're not going to stay this simple for long. But in doing that, you're using real programming concepts from day one. Like this is the stuff that I write every day, maybe not solving a maze, and it's internalizing, it's going in. Let me just carry on checking things. Do I recommend using AI for help? No, 100% not. Not because I think AI is bad. Like I have a degree in AI, I'm a big fan of AI. But AI will just tell you the answers all the time. And it's not good enough yet at just giving you help. I've built for this whole like bigger product that we're building an AI helper that's designed to only ever give help, like and ask questions and not tell you answers. But it's not like, the main reason we're not using it in this is it's too expensive. If we ran it in this, it would just like, it would cost a fortune to run. We simply can't afford it. But yeah, hopefully AI prices come down a bit throughout the year, like for the underlying systems, and then we can start to afford it. But no, don't use AI. Like don't use ChatGPT. Maybe later you can do, but certainly in part 1, I don't think you need to. Follow the steps. Ask yourself the questions. Ask the rubber duck. Ask the mentors. Like millions of people have learned to code without the help of AI. It's great, it's useful. We'll look at how to use like Copilot and all these other things later in the course. But for now, please don't. Let me just... If you try and move somewhere you can't, it will just tell you that you can't. It will just break. If you try and walk somewhere you can't, it will tell you. No, don't. I really wouldn't recommend doing any other things during this course. I mean, you can if you want to, but I suspect you'll just get yourself more confused. My intention is that there'll be enough work for you each week that you're absorbing stuff. If you just start overloading yourself by having like dozens of hours each week of work, your brain's just going to get overloaded. It's not worth it. Just do little bits, little and often, work through the projects we've got. If you do that, you'll be in a good place by the end of it. And you can then, after that, do as much as possible. I understand the desire to move as quickly as possible, but it's better to move slowly. I'm going to keep saying this, better to move slowly and really get things right than it is to just rush and rush and rush. You will find yourself overwhelmed. There's a lot of things, a lot of topics. It will become too much. So just take your time. Okay, good. Let me look at my slides and see where we're at. Okay. You can solve a maze now. Like, you know how to call functions. It's all good. That's the first exercise. The next exercise we're going to look at is a drawing exercise. This is the drawing exercise. Well, there's a couple. This is the first one. So your job here is going to be to draw this penguin. Now, the penguin starts off... this is what happens when you leave the final code already in there. So let me just delete some of this. So the penguin, no cheating and looking. The penguin starts off with some bits missing, like a missing foot and a missing other bit. I think it has a missing wing and some other bits. So when you start in a second, you'll just get half a penguin and you need to fill in the other half. But to do that, you need to learn how to draw. So this is the second thing that I'm going to teach you in this in this session today. So, so far we've looked at calling functions where they do the same thing every time. So we looked at functions like move, turn left, turn right. If you call turn left, it turns left. If you call it again, it turns left again. If you call move, it moves. If you call, it just does the same thing every time. But we need to use functions as we progress where the functions do different things each time. So if we want to draw a rectangle, or let's do a circle. We want to draw a circle and we want to draw a circle here. We might then want to draw a different circle a few seconds later that's up in the corner, for example. And so we need to have different instructions we give where we're using the same function, we're using the same machine. This is the circle machine, but we're doing different things with it. So if we go back to the slides a second. So we've got two different types of machine here. The first one is a turn left. It has no inputs. You can't put anything into it. You just have turn left and brackets. That's it. It does the same thing every time. Other machines, like the rectangle machine or the circle machine, do different things depending on the inputs you put in. So if we look back over here, you can see the inputs I've put in for circle are some coordinates where I want it to appear and the size of the circle. If we draw a rectangle, so a drawing of a rectangle has an x and y coordinate as its first two inputs and then a width and a height. What I want you to think about when that happens is Jicky getting that machine off the shelf, bringing it over, and then putting in the things that you ask him to. So he's putting in 10 into the first slot, 20 into the second slot, 40 into the third slot, and 70 into the final slot in this example. And if we do that, let's jump over and, what is it, 10, 20, 40, 70. If we do that, I can never spell rectangle. It's going to be the thing that makes this bootcamp struggle. If we do 10, 20, 40, 70, we get a rectangle. And the rectangle starts up here at 10, 20. So you get this nice little cursor that tells you where you're at. And it's 40 across, so it goes to here. So all the way to 50, which makes sense. It starts at 10, it's 40 wide, so it finishes at 50. And it starts at 20 down and is 70 long. So it's going to finish at 20 plus 70, it's going to finish at 90. So think about this. When you see a line of code like this, right now it feels simple. I've just literally explained every bit of this, so it feels really simple. But later, when you're doing more complicated things, you're suddenly going to see this and your brain's going to stick a little bit and you'll be like, what is that? Suddenly I'm just looking at numbers, I'm looking at things. Just think, we've got a machine. It starts off over here, it's on the shelf. Jicky goes and gets it, it's the rectangle machine. And then he's putting in 4 things. Now, one thing I'm going to really emphasize here, because it's the sort of thing, and I'm talking to those of you that make notes, okay? This is for you note makers out there. you do not need to remember the rectangle function, okay? You do not need to remember that this is x, this is y, this is width, this is height. You don't need to remember that. There are millions of functions. There's an infinite amount of functions because you can make functions that do whatever you want. You do not need to learn them all. When you need to find functions to reach for, in this bootcamp, we're just always going to list them. They're here on the right in the instructions. We're telling you the different functions that you need. A rectangle with its x and y coordinates, its height and its width. Those are the wrong way around. Good catch. Width and height. You don't need to memorize these. You don't need to keep a notepad next to you with a list of them all in. They will be there for you. Maybe they'll be typed wrongly and you'll have to shout at me and you'll tell me I need to fix things and proofread things better. And that is the sort of criticism that is totally fair and that I deserve. Tell me when that happens. But you don't need to memorize anything, okay? It's really important. I don't want you getting hooked up on, okay, the rectangle functions like this, the triangle functions like this. I just want you to remember what a function is and how it works. How Jicky is there putting coins in. That's what you need to memorize. That's what you need to internalize at the moment, okay? Someone's having buffering issues, but my thing tells me it's all okay now. But let me know if anyone else is having buffering issues. So the function definitions will always be on the exercise, okay? Maybe in some more complicated ones later on, we'll have a page with just all of the functions listed out. Does that make sense so far about how we use the rectangle function? Has anyone got any questions about how we use the rectangle function? Okay, good. This is very positive. There's a couple more things. We're getting close to the end of this session. There's a couple more things you need to know. So firstly, I'm getting a bit tired from 2 hours of talking, so forgive me if my brain slows down a little bit. Firstly, I want to talk about numbers. Let me have a sip of tea. This is a I'll tell you about my teas as we go through this. This is a gingerbread chai. It's rooibos, so it's caffeine free. It's from a company called Bird and Blend. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this that I'm a digital nomad. So the two things in my world that I do, that I carry around with me everywhere, are a lot of coffee. So I've got 4 kilos of coffee over there from lots of roasters, because I can't get anything posted to Madeira because it's too small and takes too long. So I have to bring it all with me in my suitcase. And these tea bags, which I literally live off as my evening tea. So highly recommend if you're in England, especially, get these tea bags. Bird and Blend, I think it's called. And it's the gingerbread chai, but the rooibos ones, so they're caffeine free. Really good. Okay, energy. Numbers. So we just looked at numbers. You might not remember that we've looked at numbers, but we have. We've just used 4 numbers. We used 10, 20, 40, and 70 for this rectangle. Numbers are pretty straightforward. They work like you would expect numbers to work. You can add numbers together. You can, let me find a pen. You can add numbers together like this. You can subtract numbers from one another. You can multiply numbers together. You can divide numbers. You'll notice that all of these things add up or equal 15. You can also use this fun percentage sign up here. And this is the remainder. So if you divide 75 by 20, the remainder of that is 15. So you have 20, 40, 60, and what's left is 15. That's how I used to calculate remainders when I was at school. All of those things will be useful. You don't need to use any of those this week. I don't think you need to use any of them on Monday. Oh yeah, you might need to use some of them next week actually. Yeah. yeah, you probably need to use this one. This is like weirdly one of the most common things that you use in programming. I probably use this percentage sign more than I use any of the others in programming, which I wouldn't have expected. But it's really useful, and I'll explain why on Monday. But yeah, just for now, all you need to know is numbers are numbers. We're going to do very little maths in this course at all. Like, programming is not maths. It drives me mad when people think programming is maths. There's some areas of programming where you use lots of maths, 100%. If you're doing lots of complex data science, yeah, you'll use maths. But, you know, we've used probably no maths to build the whole of the UI you've just seen. But yeah, these symbols should feel familiar to you. This is an asterisk, which is above the 8. This is a slash, which is down bottom right on the keyboard, and you know what plus and minus are. Any questions about numbers? I don't actually know if it's the modulo operator. I can never remember. It's either the modulo operator or it's the remainder operator. I can't remember. Some languages it's the modulo operator, and some languages it's the remainder operator. And I honestly can't remember what I chose. It was like months ago when I wrote, like, programmed it. So I'll have to check. But yeah, for now it's a remainder. That's all you need to worry about. Will we have access to the Jiki diagrams? Yes, you will. Basically everything I'm saying is in docs, they're called concept pages, in the Jiki user interface that I'll show you in a second. And it's probably a lot more articulate than me just rambling on, a lot more concise. But yeah, everything's there with the diagrams, with all the explanation of what I'm saying, so you can go back and look at them at any time. Okay. Good. Yes, why use maths when you can tell the computer to do it for you? Exactly. Okay, so far we've just looked at numbers and we have looked at functions. Those are two programming concepts you've learnt. We're now going to move on to a new one called strings. I'm just going to write this a bit bigger. Strings. Okay. Strings are a really important concept. And a string, weirdly, like, so I once, how long ago was it? 15 years ago? I ran some courses for a while. I was really involved in medical education. And I ran some courses also teaching doctors how to program. I ran some weekend courses. But I did one afternoon course. And it was a live stream, it was a live course like this. Had an auditorium, it's about 300 very senior doctors who had all paid to come and learn to code. And it was like an overview session to give them an introduction, give them some pointers. And I spent about 15 minutes just talking, explaining lots. And I used the word string constantly as I was talking. And after about 15 minutes, somebody just stood up and said, "Sorry, I don't know what a string is." And I realized that this word that to me, since the age of 8, has been one of the most fundamental words in my vocabulary, is absolutely meaningless to people outside of the coding world. I had to start my whole talk again, which is an extremely embarrassing experience for me. But strings, I discovered, they're the most fundamental thing in programming, but they do confuse people at first. They're a perfect example of something that's really not hard. It's really simple, easy concept, but it's unfamiliar. And because it's unfamiliar, people get a bit stressed and a bit caught up in it. So let's make it really simple. Let's understand what strings are. Let's not get caught up in the fact they're a bit unfamiliar. So a string is basically any time you want to write something, a sentence, a word, a single letter, an address. Anytime you want to use text in programming, we use these things called strings. They can be one line, they can have emojis in them, they could just be a single letter, a word. As I say, they could be one one string, but with lots of different lines of text in. You can tell something's a string because it has these double quotes. It has quotes at the start and quotes at the end. In Jicky script, we always use double quotes. So this is this isn't two single quotes, this is a double quote. So this is literally find the key on your keyboard that looks like that. It's normally above the single quote. It's 2 to the right of the L on my keyboard. So if you want to make a string, you literally type this, coffee. Now, why do we use strings? Well, we use strings for lots of things. Everything that you're seeing on the screen, if I jump back a second to this, everything that's text on that whole screen, from the label on the button where it says check scenarios or reset, those are strings that are sitting on a button. Think of it as physical string, imagine it, like we've drawn it here. We want to think of them as pieces of paper. That's the mental model I want you to have in this course when you think of strings. Think of little torn off bits of paper, okay? And pick them up. Get a piece of paper, write a string on it, put double quotes in it and hold it. That's a string, feel it. When you use a string in a function, imagine you're picking up a piece of paper and you're putting it into that machine. Just like earlier when we saw here, Jicky is putting these coins. We think of them as coins, with numbers on. Coins, putting them in the machine. Think of these as pieces of paper that Jicky is. I don't think I've got a diagram on here with it in. But think of it as pieces of paper that Jicky is putting into the machine. So all of these different strings, all of the paragraphs of text, all of these different labels, all of these are different strings that have been put on the screen. And as we learn how to make user interfaces like this later on in part 2, you're going to just be creating strings by having double quotes and some text, and then putting them on things where you want them. So you've got a button, you want to put a label on it, you make a string, and you put that string on the button. Think of it like layered, coming towards you off the screen. You've got a button, and then sitting on top of that button is that string. Where are we going to use strings this week? So I'm only ever going to teach things that you're going to use in the week. That's one of my big rules. You're not going to learn stuff and then not use it. So this week, one of the exercises you're going to have there's 2 exercises actually. If we go back to, I can show you on this. Keep the other exercises as a surprise for a moment. So one of the things you might want to do is change the colour of things. And so we've got a function here. It's called fill colour hex. We'll learn why it's called that in a minute. And let's say we use a string here for green. So we've got our machine. This is another machine. It's the first time you've seen it. It's called the fill colour hex machine. And it has in it, the thing it needs to have put into it is a string. And the string is the colour that you want to make the next thing. So if you want a rectangle that's green, firstly we set our fill colour. So this is setting the fill colour to be green. And then we use our rectangle. So if I press this now, the box goes green. If I change this to be yellow, the box goes yellow. If I change it to be orange, you can all guess what's going to happen. It goes orange. If we take this out, you'll get an error. In fact, it will probably blow up quite hard. It won't know what's going on at all. If we have a start of a string, but not an end of a string, it's going to tell us that we're missing the end quote. And equally, if we have an end of a string, but a start of a string, it's going to say, I don't know, I can see this, but I don't know what it's doing. Is there supposed to be some sort of quote at the start of this or what? If you have this code, what Jicky is going to think? Well, I'll ask you. If you see this, what's Jicky going to think? Let's just delete the second line of code for a second. In your mind, have a think. What's Jicky going to think? I think what Jicky's going to think here is that Jicky's expected to go and get a machine off the shelves called Orange. And that he's then going to try and put that orange machine inside the fill colour hex machine. Because we're saying, okay, we've got a fill colour hex machine and we're putting something inside it. But this is just a word. It's just, a name in our code. And we know that when Jicky just sees something like this, something in this sort of greeny colour in the code editor, that's something he goes and gets off a shelf. So I think he's going to go and get the orange off the shelf and put it in. And that doesn't make any sense because we don't have a machine called orange. But if we put quotes around it and it goes red in this case means it's a string, well, he knows what to do with that. He knows, oh, okay, they want me to sort of put the word orange into the machine. Okay, I can do that. That makes sense. It's a string. It's got quotes. I can put that in. He gets a piece of paper. He writes orange on the piece of paper. He puts it into the machine, and it works. Now, this is a really weird name for a machine. Fill colour hex. If it was fill colour, that would make a bit more, I could cope with that a bit more. Fill colour, okay, so it's setting the fill colour. It's a machine that changes the fill colour. That makes sense. Fill colour hex is a bit weird. Why do we have hex? There's lots of different types of colours, or lots of different types of ways to express colours. Let's have a little look over here. This is, just making sure I'm showing the right screen. This is a box with lots of colours. You've probably seen a colour slider like this somewhere before. You can move this up and down, choose a colour. You can slide this around, choose the shade of the colour. All of these colours are represented by 3 numbers. And if you know anything about colours, if you go back to when you were at school and you used to mix paints together, you might remember that paints are a mixture of red, green and blue. So if we have something that is, can I work out how to just do this? Here, close enough. If we have something like this, this is like pure blue, okay? So look up here, this is the percentage, well, this is the amount of red, green and blue inside this colour. So there's no red, there is a little bit of green, and there's a lot of blue. 255 is the biggest number we can have in this. If we look at red, there's a lot of red, a lot of green, and a lot of blue. And if we look at green, there's no red, a lot of green, and a lot of blue. And we can, over here, we can do this. We can use a different function, the RGB function, where we can say, okay, we want to have no red, lots of green, lots of blue. RGB, red, green, blue. And if we do a circle again, 20, we now have a green circle. If we say, okay, well, actually, we want lots of red, no green, no blue, we can do this. So this is RGB, red, green, blue. So you can use these if you want to. But often you find, and more regularly when you're doing front-end development, for reasons I don't really know why, but you do, that colours get represented by this instead, a hex colour. And you can go to any website, you can just convert, like, there's a million websites that will convert RGB to hex. And you can just Google this. I just Googled hex colour. But if you want to change the colour of any shape in any of the drawing things, you can come on here and you can choose a nice sort of yellowy colour. Let's make a sun, actually. Let's find a bright sunny orange. Something like this. And you can copy this hex colour. And you can say, okay, I want a hex colour. I want it to be a string. And you specify this hash, which just means it's a hex colour. And then you specify the actual colour itself. And that will go orange. Each of these is a hexadecimal percentage of red, green, and blue. You do not need to know what that means. Like, you can go and Google what that means if you want to, but you really don't care. And I don't want to have to explain to you because you just don't need to know. What you need to know is you go to a website, you want orange, you choose an orange and you copy and paste this. That's it. And then you paste it in here. That's where you use the internet, okay? I don't know all of the colors, the 10 billion colors off by heart. I just like use a website like this, find a color and then put it in here. When I wanted this button to be this purple, I thought, okay, what's a nice purple? Okay, I like this purple, great, copy, paste, set it to be that color. So when you're setting things, I'm recommending, just because it's good practice to use strings, that you set colors using these hexadecimal notations. Make sure you remember this hash sign. And use this to set the colors of things. Does that make sense to everyone? I'm going to go back and read the comments. Let me know. Give me a yes if it makes sense, and if it doesn't, please tell me. Someone says, why are there so many ways to express colors? It's ridiculous, but there are actually there's valid reasons for it. I want to, haven't done it yet, but I want to, for Monday, put an exercise together where as this day progresses, you animate the shade of the background of the sky. And I'm trying to find a good way of animating these colours that works really nicely for you all. For that we might end up using HSL as the way we use it, which is yet another way of expressing colours. It's a bit ridiculous, but the key takeaway, honestly, it doesn't matter about which way you use any of these colours. You can use them all. My general rule is that I use this most of the time, and I use this when I want colours that are a bit see-through. So you can have opacity where a colour is slightly see-through, and then you can add a fourth value onto this, which is how see-through it is. And then I tend to use these, but you can also add that onto these now as well. It's a bit ridiculous, but exactly the sort of thing this is the sort of thing in programming where people spend hours getting really caught up in all of this, spend ages absorbing all this knowledge, and it just doesn't matter. You can literally just Google the color anytime you want. Okay, why hex in string but numbers in the RGB version? I love you for asking that question. That is a great thing. And also, I'll come back to that in a second. Why does orange work? Great question as well. Why does orange work? Orange works because way back in the day, in the 90s, in the early 90s, you couldn't put a hex colour in there. You could only put in, 50, 60 colours that were HTML safe colours. And they were the only colours that computers would output, what the internet pages could output, were these web-safe colours. And so they have special names like orange, or red, or light orange, or light orange doesn't work. Light red, maybe? Pink? I don't know. Light blue work? Yeah, light blue works. See, I've got no idea what colours are. I've been typing these for 30 years and I still don't know. But yeah, these were the names of the colours that HTML and websites understood in the late 80s, 90s. And they've just stuck around as shortcuts. So if you don't put a hash and you just put a word, these work. And why do they work in our environment here? Because functions just call functions. So at some point, these functions that I've written, I've written this function, I've made this, but at some point it calls a function that says to the web browser, make this thing this color. And it basically just, whatever you've put in this string, that string is what I give to the web browser and say, this is the color they wanted. And because HTML understands this color, it works. It's that simple. I don't do anything with this color other than I give it to another machine, which gives it to another machine, which gives it to another, and eventually that machine turns into something which says, make the pixels on my monitor turn this colour. But yeah, that's why it works. Now, the question that someone else asked, which was a great question, which is why use strings for hex? So if we want like red, we can do this. But when we use RGB, we use numbers. So these two things are identical in terms of what they do. Which brings me on to a slide. I have a slide for this question. There's nothing better than someone asking a question that you have a slide for. Which is when you should use numbers and when you should use strings. So firstly, the hex one has to be a string because it has letters in. So if it's got letters in, like the word blue, it has to be a string. But we could, and I think the question you're asking is, why can't we do this and pass in 3 strings into RGB? Now this is like valid. I suspect this will even work. Yeah, it does, it works. So you could do this. Don't worry about why it works, but it does. But it's better not to. And the reason it's better not to is because these are numbers. These are like mathematical values. This is a percentage out of 255, 0 to 255 percentage of how much red we want in. It's a meaningful number. When we move this slider up and down, we are moving the percentages of red, green and blue. And so it's helpful to think of these as real numbers. And when you get down all the way into the computer, it is using them as numbers. It will do mathematical formulas on them to use them as numbers. So at some point, even if you put them as a string, the computer will have to turn it into a number to use it. And so we put this slide together as a few different times. When would you want to use a number? So if you're calling the rectangle function here, the coordinates 10 and 20, they're actual coordinates on a screen. This is a height, this is a width, this is a height. These are like actual numbers on a screen, on a function that you're using to do things. If we use the round function, it doesn't make things round in a visual sense. It rounds a number, so it makes the number 20, rounds it to, or 20.4, it rounds it to 20. 20.8, it would round to 21. That's a maths thing, isn't it? So it uses a number. If we have a function that wants to work out how old you are, say it's a function that says you are 5,000 days old, maths is probably off, and it takes an age. The age it's taking is an actual number there. It's something that is something we're going to do a mathematical calculation on. You know, every year you get older, you add one. By the very nature of that sentence, adding one, it's a number. But for other things like an address, you know, if we're saying, okay, post to the White House, and then we have a zip code here. In American, we have postcodes in the UK, but a zip code, that's not really like, it's not a number in a mathematical sense. You're not going to do some maths on it. It's something that's giving you information. After I made this slide, I did wonder if actually in the postal service in the US they do sometimes do maths on it, but certainly in the British ones they don't because we have letters in there. Or another good example is like a credit card. Now, you might need to do some maths with this for checksums and all sorts, but really like when you're reading a credit card number off and it's got spaces in and all of that, it's a piece of text, it's a piece of information. It's not a mathematical number. You don't add one to it. Or a hotel room is another example. Yeah, hotel rooms are lined up. This is 101, this is 102. But it's still a piece of information about something. It's not like a mathematical property. It's something that you would write on a piece of paper. Not something you would, you know, make a coin that you can put in something or add numbers to. Does that make sense? The sort of difference between this. It is a little fuzzy because often we only use numbers in the world when we actually want to do something mathematical. But hopefully you can see the sort of difference between them. Yeah, like a label and not a value. That's a really nice way of saying it. It's a label for something. It's something you would write on something, not something you would put into a calculator. That's probably a nice way of thinking it. So yeah, strings are for information. Numbers are for mathematical things. That's a nice way of putting it. Okay, does that all make sense? Do any more questions about any of this? Give me a yes if it makes sense while I drink some tea. Good. I'm glad you're all enjoying it. If you've been coding for a while, obviously everything I'm saying is like second nature to you. But I really think it's worth you internalizing the idea of what is happening under the surface. Like, I've made Jiki, I've programmed Jiki, I've written this programming language. And it's actually been really helpful to reinforce to me as I've done that, all of this stuff that's happening under the hood. And I think when you're building your mental model on day one, it's a really valuable thing to do. So when you're thinking of functions, think of Jiki getting a box off the shelf and using it. When you see a string, think of a piece of paper with these double quotes on. Okay, so before we finish up, I am just going to show you the exercises you've got. So this is the first exercise, the second drawing exercise. I'm really glad, I really appreciate all the kind words, by the way, about the explanations. It's really encouraging to hear. Thank you, genuinely. Okay, so this exercise, we've got a penguin. The penguin looks like it's having a hard time. Your job is to make the penguin symmetrical. So you need to add a right eye, you need to add the right side of the face, you need to change its nose a bit, you need to add a foot. Here we have a jumbled house. One thing to note, important, keep your brain on for 1 sec. When you start these exercises, we'll change this next week, but for now, when you start these exercises, you need to click this check scenarios button, and it shows what the code does in its initial state. At the moment, it doesn't show that. So if you're looking at it, you're like, I don't know what to do. Just remember, always click this check scenarios button to see things. Okay, so you're trying to make this house. This house is, I've just realized I've gone the wrong screen. Sorry. Okay. That's the house. My bad. Let's go back. Okay, this was the penguin. Thank you all for telling me. Okay, this is the penguin. Penguin needs extra eye, extra side of face. You need to stretch its nose so that it can have a full nose. We need a foot on this side. I want you to be really meticulous. Don't hack, don't guess. You can work out how to do this first time, okay? You can go in here and there's little comments that say where to do things. You can do it first time. You don't need to guess. If you want to add a right wing, you want to do the same thing on the left wing, just in a slightly different place. Work out where it needs to go. I've given you lots of instructions and all of this stuff to help you. It doesn't matter if you end up getting it wrong. Like, it doesn't matter if you have to have 100 goes to get it right. But I don't want you to guess. I want you to try and work it out first. Remember, when you type code, that should be you typing up what you think is the correct answer. Sometimes you do have to try things. Sometimes that's fine. But I want you to try and see if you can work things out first. Come up with a really good first guess. Let's put it that way first. Yeah, you can read the left. Exactly. That's exactly it. Read this code. I've put this code here so you can see it. In some things, I've not put code there. And sometimes I've hidden this code so you can't see it. I'll show you that in a second. But if the code's there, read it. But look at this. See this left wing and then use it to work out how to do the right wing. See this left foot. See this left eye. On this one, you've got a nose as well somewhere. Where's the nose? Here, the nose is tricky. The nose is tricky. The nose, you've got to change. You're not adding a line, you're changing it. And triangles are tricky, honestly. More tricky than you'd think. I need to add a triangle. I'm going to add a triangle exercise tomorrow morning for you all as well. There's not enough triangle exercises at the moment. Okay, so that's the penguin. The house. The house is jumbled. The house has all of the bits there. They're all the wrong size, and they're all in the wrong place. Now this one, I've given you instructions here that tell you exactly what to do. Okay, so I'm telling you that the house should be 60 wide and 40 high. It should have its top corner here. So you should be able to work out, if you come down to the house, that it needs to move to 20 by 50 with a 60 and a 40. So you should be able to get that first time. Then I'm telling you that the roof sits snugly on top of the house. So you should then be able to work out what to move these two to make it do that. And it overlaps by a few pixels either side. So you should be able to work this out, again, without guessing. And what I want you to do is get the first bit. So get the house. So this is, I'm going to just do the house for you because it's so easy. 20 by 50 by 60 by 40. The house is now in the right place. And you'll see before it said here that the frame of the house wasn't correct. When we get it right, it says, okay, the frame of the house is correct, now the roof isn't correct. Every time you do one of these points, I want you to click check scenarios and check it's right. Once you've got one right, I want you to move on to the next one. Think really carefully about what you think it should be. Really take your time before you press the button. Get a really good first guess, then press the button and see whether you get it right or not. Once you've got that right, move on to the next one. Keep following it through. Okay, good. Then you've seen the maze already. So I want you to start with the maze. Just get this character to this green spot. Weather forecast. We're going to be building a weather forecast app later. Like this is going to go all the way through. We're going to start off today we're going to add a sunshine to add a ray of, oops, I've still got all of my correct code loaded, so we're going to add this sun into the middle. Let me reset. Add this sun into the middle like this. And then we are going to do one more. This is the trickiest one. I've made it a bit easier because it was a bit too hard. You're going to make this drawing and you're going to make it by filling out. You need to work out what shapes to use where to make this happen. Again, read the instructions. I've given you some hints. Read the hints before you start. This is the trickiest one, but again, you should be able to work it out. You're not going to be able to work it out. This one's different. You're not going to be able to work it out just by reading this and this, but you can work it out with the use of this little pointer here. Okay, so those are the exercises that are loaded. I'm going to add 2 more tomorrow for you as well. Your aim is to solve these exercises before Monday, if you can. They all use circles, which have the central X point, the central Y point, and the radius. Rectangles, which we've looked at, except these are the wrong way around, which I'll fix in a minute. Ellipses, which have an X and a Y as their center X and Y, then how wide they are and how tall they are as the next two, but as radii, so how tall half is and how wide half is. You've got the 2 fill colours we've looked at, and you also have triangles. Triangles are tricky. For triangles, we specify the 3 points that you've got. So this is the first point. I like to put spaces in like this. This is the first point. So this is 10 by 10 here. This is 29 by 37 here, this one, by 33, sorry, and this is 33 by 29, just to confuse things. If you ever want to watch things be moving, you can just step through each thing as well like this. just to see which line is which. And you can also check where things have happened. This doesn't matter so much for this exercise because the code's quite easy, but later on, this will be really useful. Okay. Then the other thing someone asked about was, do I have this working? Yeah. So this is the level page. So let me just check, see if this works. This is your dashboard. Your dashboard shows you're on level 1. Level 1 is today's session. It will show you the next exercise for you to do down here. They're not necessarily in the correct order. I'm sorry about that. I need to fix it. It will show you an exercise that you can do here. But this is your dashboard. If you go to level 1, all of the levels from today all the way through to the end of the course will have a dedicated page. This video will come on here in a minute as well, so you can watch it back. All of the exercises are down the right-hand side here that you need to do. So these are the 5. There'll be 2 more that I add later. You can see the projects they're in. So this is the drawing project. This is also the drawing project. This is the maze. These 2 are the weather forecast. And these are all of the concepts that I've talked about. So when we talked about what are functions, you can come here. This is the diagram I showed you. There's a couple of notes on here as well. You might remember that functions from when you studied maths, forget them. Functions in maths, different thing. Forget them. Forget them, forget them. Forget maths, no maths here. But yeah, all of the information you need is in here. And I think that's it. And then there's also, if you need it, quick jumps into Discord and the forum on here as well. And then should you want to, you can just jump back into Exercism at any point. And you can get to the dashboard. Mentors, especially useful for you. You can get to it just by coming here, and that should take you here. But I think I need to redirect mentors to the right place, so that's on my to-do list as well. That's me done, I think. Let me just check the questions. Is it better from XY coordinates starting from bottom left? It would be, but in the world, sadly, they don't. They start from the top left. So I've done this because that's how you'll use them when you're doing other things in the real world. But it would be nicer if they did, but they just don't. I like that. The Y direction is like someone standing with their arms up. That's a good way of remembering it. Would I want you to repeat the exercises? Nope. If you've done the exercises, you've done them. If you want your house to be jumbled tough, it has to fit in with my rules. That's one thing to note. The exercise will complete. You'll get like that celebration thing you've seen once everything's in the right place. The colours don't matter for these exercises, so you can choose colours if you want to go wild. I will add another couple of exercises. I'll post on the forum and on Discord when I do. I had one more thing I wanted to tell you all. Oh yeah, we've got a free drawing area as well that we're going to be launching on Monday, where you can just create your own drawings, and we're going to give you some backgrounds that you can use to put things on and decorate things. On Monday's session, we're going to be introducing animation. So Monday is going to be using animation. So we're going to be taking the drawings you're building now and starting to animate them. So that's what you'll be doing next week, and that will be more complex, but it will be fine. We'll get you through it. Okay, good. I think that's it. Exercises will normally be released on the Monday live session. But honestly, I just haven't got them all finished. We've been working so hard on just trying to get the whole of this interface right for you. There's just been loads to do. So yeah, I added the sunshine one like half an hour before this started. My voice is gone. I'm going to go and eat dinner because it's 9 o'clock. I've not eaten. And then I'll push this all live in about an hour from now. I know you're all probably dying to get started, but give me an hour just to tweak a couple of things I noticed before I confuse people with having like the wrong instructions. It will go live. I'll add a couple more exercises tomorrow, but generally I'll be a bit more on top of it. Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining the bootcamp. Really appreciate you all being here. It's been a super positive vibe. Let's, if we can keep that going, that will motivate me loads as well. Really exciting. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your weekend. say hello on Discord. See you again in the real world, well, here at least, on Monday. Bye for now.